Hola, manos. Welcome to our ipsicafé scoping series where we take an idea and scope it in real time, 1 hour at a time. My name is Alejandra. I'm a strategist and community organizer. And
I am Lizzie. I am a project strategist and systems thinker.
the first idea that we're scoping under this series is creating a blueprint that allows us to intentionally build and interweave our networks so we can strengthen our communities and more effectively translate people power into structural change-making power.
And a quick recap of what we have done so far through this series is we started with a general brainstorming with the bubbles method that we use, and it is just free flow of ideas, and each bubble represents an idea. To help us with the brainstorming process, we used the 5W&H framework to ask us questions: what, who, where, when, why, or how. And we completed a categorization process, grouping the elements based on certain common characteristics. We group all the ideas in six categories. We have humans, which is yellow, areas of interest, green, core values foundation, purple, blueprint output, what it would be these project results, in blue, blueprint development, which would be the development of this project, orange, and barriers, gray. After the categorization, we started with the interdependencies or interconnections of all these ideas or systems elements, which is a critical part of systems thinking. We work in the pass through the initial interconnections of the categories for blueprint development, orange, and humans, yellow, and left in last session starting the interconnections of the community areas of interest, which is green. And we will continue now building on what we have done so far.
Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks, so we are this session today would probably be some refamiliarizing ourselves with the idea that we're working on, and continue connecting the other categories as well. So without anything else, let's get to scoping. So we always start with adding the time that we start. It is really helpful to keep track of all of this. It is 11:17 in the morning in the Netherlands, and Lizzie and I are together for this session. So yeah, so we'll start there, and yeah, and like I said, let's get to scoping. So we've connected the humans. The way the connections work, we want to make sure that all elements that we've identified so far have either an input or an output into something. When we think about systems thinking, all elements within a system must be connected to another element in one way or form, unless they are the very beginning or the very end of that process. So, for example, we have what have others done as kind of the initial step right now of how we get started. And then we go into problem identification. So what exactly is the quote unquote problem that we're trying to identify? And then as good project managers that we are, we look at what are known as the 10 areas of knowledge, where there are the different aspects to consider in a project, what the scope of the project is, what the timeline is going to be, cost, quality, resources, risk, communications, partners, integration, procurement. I list them all. And later in the series, we'll be able to go deeper into each one. But then we see the connections go into the humans, because we might be project managers, we might be strategists, there's plenty of things we don't know. So that's where other humans come in supporting the development of this project. So we want to identify who the most knowledgeable people are. We call those MKPs, because then they'll be incredibly important sources of information, of knowledge, of experience and expertise to contribute to this project. And also looking into our existing networks and seeing who we know that could be MKPs, or perhaps who the people we know could introduce us to.
Yeah, and I want to chime in there. Like, for example, in many projects, we could have the MKPs from the beginning, and they participate in this bubbles generation. And later on, in this case, we started Alejandro and I. So it is possible that this, when we have the, let's say, community organizers involved, that they can bring any additional ideas that will help to um, update or evolve our process. So this is not static. This is not like, oh, these are the only areas for humans that are for the blueprint. These things could change, and that's the flexibility. But when it's mapped, it's easy. It is easier to find where things that we didn't consider at the very beginning uh, in place and see how impact other areas.
All right, so we have when I see a couple of green bubbles, a few green bubbles that are not connected, and then one orange bubble that is not connected, what do we think about where those fit into this process? Because we had talked about, when I was doing a little recap, talking about how the humans get involved and looking at, like you said, who is already doing this. We have this large green bubble essentially that'll be different communities, how different groups organize already. Um, and then the three that are outside the bubble. Do you remember exactly why those stayed out?
Yeah, I think that we ran out of time for the start, and yeah, but I want to just you mentioned that there are a couple that are not connected, and you mentioned that the 10 areas of knowledge, because these are the things that we are going to manage in the development of the blueprint. They will be tied to pretty much everything. For example, one of them is communications or partners, and the humans are partners. So all that will be like little or umbrellas within the project. So that bubble that doesn't have an exit, the 10 areas of knowledge, will have connections with green, with other yellows, with the blue that are the outputs of deliverables. So that will come up later. And the idea or the importance of mentioning this is not like you have to go one by one and connect the entry or exit. You can move around and start doing it as your brain goes. We like to do this very free flow. So it is not like, this is the next step and this is the next step. There are steps that go in tandem and back and forth and allows you to be really free of ideas, because you can think of something now that maybe is something from a forward step, or something that you might think, oh, I should have thought about this earlier, and that's okay. So these are things that we will be you will see how we go back and forth from the categories and the connections. It doesn't have to go, okay, now let's connect all the greens. Oh, now let's connect all the blues.
And I think right now I was thinking of connecting that orange, the way I'm doing it now, into, if you see on the board, into that flow of yellow, because that will help determine, okay,
Yeah,
who are those, once we do that, like thorough planning, then it'll help us identify
right.
the, the yellows. So I'll
Be-
connect it in that way.
yeah, and also because it will have, for example, scope and time, we want to share all our development with other people that are involved in the project. So we will communicate to them, we will tell them what is the scope, how long it's going to take. So that would be perfectly there. And again, it doesn't mean that that's the only exit from the 10 areas of knowledge. As you will see later, that bubble for sure will link to other color ideas.
Okay. So should we bring another info, do you think?
I think I would like to bring I don't know if you want to work on those three that are there, the find humans who inspire you.
I think if we bring another color, it might help just kind of wash it out on its own. I think one of the things that I like with this process is that it's not linear, it's not
Mm-hmm.
sequential. So it doesn't mean that you have to connect all the colors first and then another set of colors. So sometimes it helps to get started with certain colors, but I think it's also useful sometimes to break off because like I said, this is not going to be sequential. It's not like you do all yellow and then all green and then all orange. So I was thinking we can
I think
do.
blue. I think the blue is a
I
good.
think the blue in and of itself probably needs more categorization. Do you think we want to do that? Um,
I think because it's just like a tangible, they are tangible and it's like we could see physical. And
yeah, I can bring it.
yeah, and with that you say, that you just said about the brain, at least my brain, trick us to that we have to think in one way. So as you mentioned, if you're saying like, oh, if we're doing green and then we get stuck on green, because it's not like we know exactly how they are going to be interconnected. We have to think about it. We have to ask questions and ask us questions or ask others questions. When we bring a different category, it helps us to let me get out of here for a minute, and then you start seeing interconnections, because every category is going to be interconnected most likely with all the categories in one way or another.
Right.
Not necessarily a 100% fact, but most likely you will have yellow connected to green, connected to blue, connected to purple, connected to gray. So when you do that, jumping from one to another, it doesn't mean disorganized. Actually, it helps you to do that linkage in a more fluid way, and that's one of the I insist on this because the importance of this brainstorming process is that it's, like you said, it's not linear. It is not eh, like, oh, it has an end. We cannot think anymore. No, we continue thinking and making it useful for us. Um, Sometimes we get caught up on, oh, this is the drawer for this, and then we cannot change the drawer. We have to make the drawer functional for us. So
Exactly. Okay, so I've added blue into the categories list up at the top, and then I've added all of our blue bubbles at the bottom to start thinking about them. So I think a good first step is trying to. Sometimes one of the things that we find with the categorization process is that it might be difficult at the beginning of trying to be sure which category something fits into. And the reality is that it doesn't necessarily matter. Part of the processing the information is breaking it uh, into smaller areas or smaller sections. And because we're processing every single element, it might come out later that, oh, this wasn't part of blue, but really this was part of green. And it doesn't that's not going to affect the end result negatively because you're still critically thinking through all of these elements. So one of the things we noticed when we were doing the bubbles is that the blue category is quite heavy in the sense that it has a lot more elements than the other categories. And usually what that indicates is that a category might have more categories within it. So part of processing right now blue, it might be that we need to sort it a little bit more in order to differentiate what different categories may exist within the blue category.
right. And that would be like like maybe two or three subcategories under blue, or we could very well be a different category. So we will have a blue, and then we have another. Now we give it another color. Let's say
Exactly.
dark blue. So the thing is, and the comparison that we always use, if you have a drawer for clothes, you normally you wouldn't say, I'm gonna have here my tops, my bottoms, my underwear, and you separate. You probably say, okay, I have too many buttons, too many tops, too many underwear. So I'm going to have now, if I have room, I'm gonna have two drawers or three drawers, and then you put tops in one, bottoms, and underwear, even though the three are clothing.
Yeah. And that could be, oh, these are my going out tops and these are my sleeping tops. You might, whatever works for you and your context. But at the same time, part of what we like with this categorization process or that we like to emphasize is that there isn't just one way to organize your products or your clothes with this example. You can make drawers by outfits. So you have this is what I wear on Mondays, and you have another drawer that is what you wear on Tuesdays. You don't have to organize it by underwear and tops and bottoms.
Right.
You might like organizing it in a different way, and that is a completely valid way to categorize that. Also, and that applies to projects as well. Anyone can do the brainstorming that we did, and different people will categorize it in different ways, and that is not a negative thing. In fact, that is actually positive because it allows us each to use our brains in the way that they work without having to adhere to a very specific way of thinking or a very specific way of processing information. So right now I'm starting to see, in looking at the blue bubbles, I'm starting to see a couple of different things. One is, for example, things to consider. So on the left, I put existing systems and structures, for example. But there's also what the blueprint itself is going to be. So I'm going to put that on the right, and we have blueprint as a decision tree, or the blueprint as a map. See, communication styles might be something to consider. Again, this isn't something that we plan ahead of time, is where part of this process is showing how we think and organize all of this information, how we process it in real time. And a lot of times that is just like a back and forth of, does this go here? Does this go there? What do you think? Primary project deliverable as visual. That seems to be towards the end.
Yeah, maybe we can put the things that are really like tangibles of outputs all together.
Yeah, there's a skills bank. There is tools, resources. That seems to be things that will be
Database, which is on the left.
Formats of interaction. That might be.
Yeah, that would be something that is defined. I have a question because I don't remember well. What was labor? What did
What were we
labor
thinking?
encompass?
I think thinking about what kind of labor is involved in carrying this out, and putting it with skills. What kind of skills might be? Yeah, well, thinking about because part of trying to create a blueprint is trying to create something that can be adapted to different contexts. So if in one context, how one group applies this might require different skills, different types of labor, different considerations versus another group. So I think identifying what is needed in order to carry out whatever common purpose that group has. I think that was the idea initially when we identified particularly those two.
Okay.
Shared definitions, I think, would go with this kind of on the right, like a left.
Yeah, the left would be like the things that we know that we have to kind of consider. So we have, let's see, maybe it's me. Okay, so you have existing systems, structure, institutions, so we have to consider that. What communication styles, the time zones, coordinating group dynamics. And the center would be
undefined as yeah.
Okay, and the last one is the things that we need, like products, like things that we have to, outputs, like these tangible outputs.
And then on the right is kind of the
like what is there, I mean,
just the entire, yeah.
like
I think it's how we're
the environment, if you will.
sort of like that.
Yeah, exactly.
I think communication cadence, I think would go on the fact too. Not sure.
Yeah, because that would be like, like in strategic planning, the term is environmental scan. So that would be like a scan of what is there. Trying to find a different word.
What do you mean?
Like, what is out there that others have done, what is the dynamics and all the things that we have on the left. It are these inputs like we have are like sort of inputs of the environment. But environment, I don't think is the right word.
I think context might be
Settings, um, general settings, or yeah, context is it works. Um, yeah, let's use context. And would you like, do you wanna, I like the idea to keep it as one category, like the blue, and then we have different shades of blue. So yeah, so that would be like probably the context. The second you mentioned like things in consideration, or
no, the second area right now that is highlighted, all of those haven't been like placed.
So communication channels, I think that would be part of the right one. Like it's because there are some things that I think that the right one is gonna give us like the structure, or we can have a structure as part of the outputs, right? Yes. Like the operational things that we need for
Because I think part of the way I'm seeing this blueprint as a, let's say a guide, right? So this, all of these blue elements would be the process of a group applying this blueprint.
Mhm.
So there's the left side that were things that need to be considered. So this group, depending on their context, we want to figure out what others in similar context have done, right?
Mhm.
And what maybe even before what the existing systems and structures that enable or create that context in the first place, right? To be able to kind of be able to determine what the context is that they're operating under, right? And then from there, it's going to be in a way a bit of a mirror of what we're doing to develop this blueprint, right?
Correct. And that's one of the things that I want to bring the attention to, that we have at the beginning, when we have the problem identification, we review what others have done to to identify a problem better. So that bubble that is in orange is the same bubble. We put it like in orange at the beginning because we think it will help us. It's heavier on the development of the project, but it will be also helpful for the the outputs of the blueprint. So that bubble probably will be eliminated. It will be eliminated, the blue, and then we will tie the context to that orange. And that's how you start seeing how the different categories start interacting with uh, between each other.
Yeah. So I'm starting to move these in terms of how they relate, have existing systems and structures. So trying to figure out what this group is organizing under, what context this group is organizing under. Trying to learn what others have done, because we don't, just because a new group in a new context is organizing, it doesn't mean that every group has to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
There is incredible work that is being done in communities all across the world that we would benefit from learning, and implementing those learning processes can support groups in being able to affect the change that they're looking to affect. So then I started separating a little bit. Then there's the part of considering the the specific group. So determining group dynamics, what the different communication styles are, what availability people have, what time zones they're operating in, because people can organize around, it might be in the same geographic location, but people can organize, as we saw in the green, and the large green bubble that we have on the top, people can organize for many different reasons. So if someone is organizing around their religion, for example, that can be happening globally. So that consideration of time zones, for example, could play into there. I'm trying to decide if asset mapping and I'm going to remove skills bank from this one because there's a skills bank. Well, that's on the other
Mhm.
side. So asset mapping. I think maybe skills, and I'm going to change labor to labor needed because that's a little, I think that's what I meant in that first initial labor. So what labor is needed in order to carry this out. Oh, and then we have the six in the middle. I think similar methods might go parallel to what others have done. Perhaps
What six in the middle?
these that are highlighted right now. Haven't been
Okay.
haven't been
Yeah,
characterized, for example.
I
Formative interaction.
yeah, I see it there.
I think identification of needs might go parallel to existing systems and structures.
And the coordinator, I would put it like in front of that, like the buy-in, I think I would leave it like if we are doing like a sort of a sequence, the buy-in, are we talking about the buy-in of what we're going to like as an output, or the buy-in of all this evaluation that we have for the
So
group dynamics,
sorry, I cut you off. All the evaluation of what?
like of the skills and time and
No, I'm thinking buy-in as, again, thinking of this as a group of individuals, how the different individuals buy into this common purpose. So do you see that later?
no, it depends on depends on what the concept was, because it could be like, okay, now that we have all this, we have evaluated all that, we have a buy-in, but I agree with you. So if it is because it's part of all, and that's where the brain could play tricks like, oh, but who is doing that buy-in? And then we will have the linkage with the resources once that they have been participated. So it's something that not necessarily you do at the beginning. It is something that you have inputs from your most knowledgeable people as well to have that buy-in.
So where would you see it if in the context that you're thinking about it, where do you see it?
Well, I see the thing is that we are going to have this multiple path. So, for example, for existing systems structures, right? I have it, what others have done. We have that in the orange, right? And so I will remove that blue because we will use like the orange one to help us. It gives us information for both. The idea of unless that what others have done has a different scope than the orange one. because the efficiency that the methodology brings is when you see, oh, I have this activity here that is going to help me with other processes of my project later. So that orange at the beginning with problem identification, I would link it to the existing system structures institutions. It's an output of the what others have done.
But the thing is that I'm seeing blue as a standalone because it's the output of this entire process. So it's more, I'm seeing the blue and what others have done as sort of an instruction that's going to be part of the blueprint.
Right, but it fits from the development of the project. Because if not, you could say, okay, the blue is just a project without considering any of the other bubbles. So that's where I would link them. I mean, my output, my blueprint, my final blueprint, it is tied to all these processes that I'm doing to develop the output.
Do you mind if we keep it for now?
Sure.
Just because I'm not convinced that it's not going to need to be standalone, because once we have the blue, we won't necessarily have the orange and the yellow anymore. Because
Right, as a final product. But because we are doing it as part of the whole project, it is there as it derives from what we are doing. But we can do it. We can work that later. And I totally agree with you. When if you have it as a blueprint, you don't have to redesign it again, right? That's why it's like a template.
Well, exactly, because I'm thinking for us, the orange, what others have done is something we are going to do,
Okay.
right? Is going to be like we are going to do that research. And I think if we tie systems and structure, blue systems and structures to that orange, I feel like it's informing what we're going to do rather than this component of the blueprint itself that, yeah, I'm not.
No, not what we are going to do. It's not that blue informs what we are going to do. Our development of the project will inform us. Will give us some inputs to make the output of the blueprint. That's what I mean.
So you think an arrow coming out of the orange, what we have done, into the blue?
Into the blue.
Okay.
That's what I mean. That they will be, because when you do that, you already taking efficiency of that research and put it there in what others have done.
So like in that direction?
In that direction. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because when let's say that this is a template, right? Like a blueprint. When you develop it the first time, you get inputs that you have done from the development of the project. And then others get the efficiency. I mean, if I'm going to have a house and I just buy the prints, I don't have to go through the whole design process stuff. But to get to that blueprint, the architects and engineers that in this case are us, needed information from the project.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that works with keeping it in blue.
Yeah.
I'm going
Fair.
blue.
And that's probably that when we have this, because we have the visuals, and the visuals by themselves work when people are interacting in the development of the visuals, but when not, we have to have a set of instructions, and that will clarify what, like you said, the blueprint, it will be standalone, but when we said what others have done, we can have some information gathered from our research.
Okay, and I'm thinking what others have done will inform similar methods, maybe
Yes.
back and forth.
Yeah, because maybe you have ideas of a method without knowing, and then who has done this before?
Where do you see identification of needs as?
I think after the similar methods, Well,
Yeah, I'm trying to think because in a way that would need to be sort of first,
right.
right? In order to, it's kind of tied to that problem identification that we have in orange.
Yeah, because you could know, okay, I will need some specifics, but when you do the evaluation, what have others done or similar methods, then you can say, oh, maybe I don't need this, or I do need A, B, and C that I didn't consider before. So I think it feeds or is informed by similar methods.
Identification of needs.
Mm-hmm. But
But
could
how would
be,
you know what methods you're even looking for if you still haven't identified what it is that you need?
well, then I think that we need a bubble that is like,
Because I think we still have like, what is the beginning?
what
We
is the
have the
beginning? The
start,
beginning
right?
is, yes, like just scroll to the right if you don't mind. Oh, you can see them all.
What do you mean scroll?
No, I was not looking at your screen. I was looking at mine. I think it is like if it's a blueprint, we will like to have a bubble that is, what is it? Because you can have, if you want, why do you need the blueprint? Do you need the blueprint for something specific, or do you do the blueprint because you want to do something that has inspired you? And that's probably where that green bubble comes
I was
in.
gonna say, I feel like those floating green bubbles, the shared reality, the shared motivations
They
might
are,
be the like
they start
initial.
of the blue,
I'm gonna move down to the left.
and they will be blue, right? Or if we're going to have like different shades of blue, we can go from darker to light. If we have, because we will have like a sort of a process here, sort of a sequence, most likely, because it's a blueprint. So that you definitely will have like a step by step, and then those will be green. It will be blue, right? Because it will be part of your blueprint. And that's how you start. I have a shared reality that I want to work on. I have, or motivation, or I have people that have inspired me. I would bring that one too, the one that is floating with the greens, because I may not have a shared reality of shared motivation, but maybe Greta inspired me, and then I decided to start something like in a smaller scale to do things, to support that cause. And those would be like the start. What do we want to do? What is our community organizing for?
Okay.
So do you like the idea of going like from darker blue to light or lighter to dark? To have like it will visually give us like also a sense of moving.
I just didn't know yet exactly how to organize those, so I didn't know if it was at this moment in time good to start changing the colors.
Okay.
I think it'll be good to change the colors, but I think once we see
Yeah.
how they connect a little better, that might.
Okay. And I think just for how my brain works, it doesn't necessarily has to be like others, probably others see it differently, but I would do it like from lighter to dark. It's like, just start like subtle, and then at the end you have something solid. So yeah, that would
So do you
be,
think those three green bubbles be like their own bubble, like starting point?
it could be, I would put
You
it
can say
like,
different
I,
just for now.
yes, and I would put like starting a community organizing. Um, and there could be those different, and maybe another things that right now don't come to our heads, but maybe something else that make others to.
So start blueprint application.
Hmm.
And it can be one or all of these reasons.
Right, or something else that probably, because we can always leave space for other people to add to their to the blueprint, to tailor their blueprint, right?
Okay.
So and just bear with me, I mean, just for the purposes so that doesn't get confused with the, let's put it like a blue, and then we will change the shades, but let's put it blue so it's clear that belongs now to this category. And this is how the critical thinking works. We identified initially, maybe 3 or 4 sessions ago, those in green because that's how it talked to us. But when we worked the greens last time, they were like floating there because they had something that, and that's what this has to talk to each person. It has to talk to each project manager or project coordinator or community organizer or the person that is developing something. This is for you. So it has to be things that resonate with you. So now we find, oh, yeah, this is really the start of this particular blueprint.
Okay, so from there, you'd probably do both.
Yes.
You identify needs.
Right. Yes. And then you see what is there.
Do you think from there or from identification of needs also? I think the systems and structures would also inform the identification of needs.
Right. Because you can see what is there and say, okay, I would need this. And for the what others have done, that's I think it's a bi-directional with the existing system structures institution.
What do you mean?
I'm trying to see the difference between the two.
And what others have done in existing systems and structures? Well, one is, so the way I see existing systems and structures tied to the identification of needs is what systems and structures and institutions are playing a role in the context of this group. Completely like not tied to what others have done. Just say that this is a group and they want to organize in their school. So it's good to consider the governmental institution that is in charge of education. It's good to look at the education system. It's good to look at that kind of things. The local government, the different structures that might have influence, that might have power.
Okay.
And not necessarily related to what others have done to affect change within schools, for example.
And as I ask this happens often. That when we have a bubble and we discussed the bubble maybe 3 sessions ago, we want to ensure that we understand what the bubble is. And there are sometimes like, well, what is the difference between these two, or why we have two, or because I could have thought, oh, existing system structures institutions is what others have done and have created a system and a structure institution, but it is different. And sometimes either we put verbiage that help us, or we put notes like in a different page, like what is this? Because especially when we have several people brainstorming, it happens that later we are not sure what an idea was entailing. So
exactly. And I'm keeping these three bubbles: coordinating, knowledge transfer, sharing, and multiplier effect, floating on the right, just because we haven't placed them anywhere, but not for any other reason, just kind of to be dealt with later. So as we're seeing kind of this flow of information, we have a group that has a shared reality, shared motivation, or inspired by someone or something. The background is the Netherlands emergency testing response.
That is every Monday at
Every Monday, no, every first Monday of the month at
noon.
Okay, so we have a group that gathers around something, shared reality, shared motivations, and they identify both the needs that that group has in common, so what it is, what purpose it is that they're organizing around, and then what existing systems, structures, or institutions affect that context. Then the work is to, in order to support that process of affecting change, looking at what others have done in similar contexts to do that, what methods they have used, and then that's the end of our connections for now.
Okay. I'm glad that you refreshed me about the the national emergency testing.
I'm not sure if it's picked up by the mic. No, it's in the background. Anyway, okay.
Okay, and so then then I agree now that you have done the evaluation, you have you have all the information that
Do we think the buy-in comes after what others have done or before? With the or in the middle, like between, like with the identification of needs. I
I've
think buy-in can come at different points too. But
I think it's afterwards because you when you have all the information, you make better decisions when you have all the information in hand. So the buy-in is the decision that this is what we are going to do.
right, but you need buy-in from people in order to do this work. So that's what I'm trying to figure out. Who is, if no one has bought in, who is doing this?
I think that would
part?
be something on the very beginning when you have those the what you're doing is share reality. So find humans inspire you, share motivations, then you go and start. Probably that's not only you, that's a group of people. Maybe we could have a bubble there that is like connections around, like before starting, because it could be one. Right now, I'm seeing it as one person, like
Mhm.
Don Quixote going, I'm going to do this. But if you see it more as, like you're going to bring a community, we will have a bubble that will be a second bubble after the first big one.
Mhm.
And from there, you have like a initial thought process or initial like you find connections
Beyond the shared reality? What do you?
or it depends on what that means, because shared reality is okay. I know that there are three other organizations that have a shared reality. Do I connect with them? I was thinking, if we have that bubble like the first one, and then we have a second one that where you do like a connecting to anyone, like a connection, because normally these blueprints could start from one person or many, right?
Sure, but part of the shared reality, if it's one person, the shared reality, then you're not organizing around a shared reality to start.
Mm, 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 Not necessarily, because
Right.
I could have a reality.
You always
I could have a reality. I have a reality, and then I said, I know that there are other people that have the same reality. I
yeah.
know that there's a shared reality, but that doesn't mean that I am sharing my reality with them. I know that let's say I I don't want to bring any particular example, but I have a reality, right?
Mhm.
Let's say Hispanic community. I have a reality, and I know there are other Hispanics around me that have the same reality, but that do not that doesn't mean that is we are working towards that shared reality. So if I want to do a community organizing in that context, I could do a outreach. That's what I think the second bubble would be: outreach those that have that shared reality, those that have the shared motivations. Now, because that's how you grow, right? So if you have, let's say that is, this is if it's one person. If it's several persons, you also do an outreach to see, because that would be part of the.
So I'm thinking that would be, yeah, I guess that's part of, we were thinking about it differently. Because I was thinking about, if the bubble that's starting is around a shared reality, then I was thinking, because those were originally green.
Okay.
So it was the idea that this community was already organized around something. Of course, it can be someone just doing it on their own.
Right. And that's what I want to do, like the minimum. Like, what is the minimum? The minimum is a person doing it on their own, and they could find that shared reality.
But then it's not a starting point, the shared reality. So that's why, like, then it has to be before that.
Yeah, it was the concept of shared reality that I was managing was different than yours. So the concept was shared reality. I know that there's a shared reality, but I am not. When I said share, maybe it's a lost in translation. It is shared because we share it, or it's shared because we know we have is common. Maybe I'm confusing the common reality with the shared reality.
And I think that was part of
That was
the
it.
reason that we're in green is that we were initially talking about how communities already gather.
Right, right, right.
So they gather around a shared reality. It could be like an example of the school before. They're already in a school, um, and they have, I don't know, there's a group of children in the school who are constantly being bullied. They have this shared reality around being bullied.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it could start with one person who is being bullied and then going out to find others who are sharing that reality. But that's why I was thinking the buy-in might not be at one point, but the buy-in might happen at different points through this process. Because if you're one person, you might need buy-in a lot earlier to get more of a group. Whereas if you have already a group organized, you might be able to get through the initial application of the blueprint and have more buy-in later down the line. So
yeah, what I was more managing, it was common reality and common motivations, which is different than shared. And that's what the the wording, because I was thinking, oh, I have a common reality. Shared reality is that we are already sharing this.
yeah, which is like I mentioned before, I think which is the what got lost once we switched it from green to blue. But then you think, I'm trying to figure out where to put buy-in.
Well, you have a buy-in there for sure if you have a shared reality, that because this is, and this is something important. When we have this level, this is a high level still, right? There are things, this process will continue going down. You will continue breaking this down, and then things are going to be more tangible. Like shared reality, we could have a buy-in there, but we for sure need a buy-in after the 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 similar methods of the research, because but what we can do is leave it there, and where you have it, and we assume that from the start of the blueprint application that it will be segregated later in smaller pieces. But from the big bubble, the big blue with three, that share motivations, yeah, that already occurs with we're doing this. And if it's one person, that person has their own buy-in, right? So we can say if it's a shared reality, the shared reality is they are already in tune to continue doing this.
Yeah, and there maybe can be a version of buy-in that happens like here. earlier on like in this bubble in order to have buy-in to do the identification of needs and do
Mm-hmm.
the kind of that contextual evaluation. So I think buy-in might come in at a different time. It might not be a new bubble, it might be the same one, but I'm trying to.
Yeah, but I'm thinking if you have a shared reality, let's say we already have yeah, let's forget for a minute one person. Let's talk about a group, right? There's an area of interest, there are shared motivations or shared realities, and they are sitting together to develop to get this blueprint.
Mhm.
There is already, from the point of view that I'm seeing at, there's already buy-in there. There's like a sort of sponsorship in the sense like, okay, we want to do this, because why would you start this blueprint if you don't have a buy-in of that group?
Well, I was thinking about what you were saying. If it's just one person, like the example of the school, if it's one kid who is in this kind of bullying situation, they might have identified that and want to get some buy-in from other kids who might be experiencing this. So I think it come in at that time, and then from buy-in, it would go out to the other. Um,
So to avoid, because now we see that there are two different concepts there. If we put another bubble in the big one that is common, like probably if we put common reality or common motivations, that probably will require, I don't know. I don't know if it's necessary, but maybe we can get it more clear when we break this down further,
mhm.
that common motivation and common reality doesn't mean, because maybe you don't, you just find that the organism, when you get to do the research and stuff, or you find that there already exists, right? Oh, then there's really not, maybe you improve what is being done with the blueprint, but maybe if we put a bubble that is common areas of interest, like generalized, and that help us later to, okay, there's one that is common and there was that is shared.
Like the green bubble.
Like the green bubble. Exactly. I had to go up because I was not looking at it. Like the green bubble, exactly. We have a common identity. We have a common language, common religion.
So you think the big green bubble connected to start of blueprint application?
Mm, no, no. I was thinking that if you have that bubble, and you do like a screenshot with the whole bubble in blue, and that would be another bubble within the big blue bubble. Many bubbles. So I would bring the green, I would copy and paste it the whole with the language and religion stuff, change it to blue, the copy one.
Mm-hmm.
And that you bring it as a little bubble with all the bubbles inside and put it in at the start of the blue inside. That could be a start.
Okay.
Not linked with green because we said blue is going to be their own. Once that we finish the project, somebody that is going to do the blueprint, they don't care about the green or the yellow or the orange, because that's what the architect or the engineer, we as architects or engineers, we did before doing the template.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah. I think that is a conversation that we're going to need to get into next week, because we're wrapping up for the day. So it's 1 minute before the end of our session. So we're going to pause this for now. And for the next month, instead of we're going to be doing ipsicafé scoping sessions on Mondays at 11 a.m. CEST, so Netherlands time. That is UTC +1. If anyone is looking for support with their specific idea, project strategy, we offer free office hours every week. There is a link in the description to sign up. and we will be doing our first ipsicafé special event later in the year. So make sure to follow us on our LinkedIn pages as well as check out our website for more information and to stay up on that. Anything else you want to say for now, Lizzie?
No, thank you very much for being here. Ciao.
All right. Hasta la próxima. Get some rest. We'll see you soon.